Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Picks of the Week. This is where I take the picks of the day that I do every day on seanspickoftheday.com, and I cover them as a, audio podcast with the visual record of the actual picks from the page for you to look at. And in the comment section below, above the comment section below, in the description below, are the links to all these pages, so you can go and check them out and, hey, maybe even buy them. I realize I should probably have been doing this all along, but these links do have affiliate code embedded in them, which means I do get a percentage of sales for everything that you buy when you go to the site drivethroughrpg.com and make these purchases. So, hey, thank you very much for helping put kibble in my dog's food bowl. All right, so this week is the Mashup Madness Week, because again, I tried to do a theme week, and this was instigated by the recent release of John Watson's crossover for Lester Smith's D6 by D6 game. This is a concept called genre mashup. Basically, this is where you end up with multiple genres all put in a kind of creative blender, and you kind of play with that. So science fiction and fantasy, or cyberpunk and fantasy. We'll get into that at some point. So anyway, this is a crossover, is a steampunk fantasy and high-tech sci-fi where they don't just intersect, they are fully at war. The D6 by D6 system is an award-winning fast-paced system and designed by TSR legend Lester Smith. So this is a great opportunity to put the rules through their paces with both fantasy and science fiction elements. And then crossover is actually a pay-what-you-want. D6 by D6 is a set, fairly low price point. And then crossover is just a pretty straightforward, basically kind of a play set, if you will, for you to kind of dive in and tell your own stories about what happens when a fantasy realm and a very mechanic science fiction realm go head-to-head in combat, and what you do to deal with that conflict. D6 by D6 is also really well known for having 5-minute character creation, quick and easy tactical combat rules, and endless setting possibilities, as they like to say. So anyway, there's your first of Mashup Madness Week. Then we get into, of course, Rifts. Hard to do Mashup Madness Week without pointing out one of the all-time kitchen sink settings in gaming, Rifts. The original came out in the 90s, and then I got the chance to do some of the most challenging and rewarding game design work of my life in bringing Savage Rifts out for Savage Worlds. Essentially, Rifts is post-apocalyptic superheroes in a world with anything and everything, including a weaponized kitchen sink. So yes, this is one of the ones that I've worked on. Actually, one of the biggest things I've ever worked on. This is the Tomorrow Legion's Player's Guide. There is also the Savage Foes of North America and the Game Master's Manual. A lot of people have been wondering if anything more is coming. As with all things Savage Worlds, they're juggling a lot of licenses and a lot of ideas and a lot of concepts, and they can only put out so many books at a time. But I can assure you I oversaw the next 3 books going into writing, development, and production, and those are on their way soon. So stay tuned. All right, moving on to the next day, the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. It's D&D setting that propelled Keith Baker to international prominence as a writer and designer, the first winner of the Wizards of the Coast's first fantasy setting search, and it exemplifies Mashup Madness Week perfectly. All the keystone elements of D&D are there, but with dark post-global warfare themes, pulp adventure overtones, and techno-magic steam-esque elements like trains and firearms and arcane robots. Eberron shook up the table and reset the board. The Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron introduces the setting to 5e fans, and it also heralds the launch of Eberron in the Dungeon Masters Guild, where you can create and share your own stuff for the setting. So there you go. This is D&D, straight up, but I mean that image right there, folks. That giant robot hanging off a flying ship with an electro train. That is not your typical Dungeons & Dragons, and that tells you why this is a Mashup Madness Week pick. Next, another Savage Worlds product, although they also did an iteration for Pathfinder, Suzerain. In the 90s, I had the extraordinary fortune to be invited as a guest speaker at a computer game conference, Develop, hosted in London. While there, I met one of the finest people I know in this life, Miles M. Cantier. And as we discussed the many dreams and ideas we shared about gaming and role-playing, I learned of his lifelong passion project, Suzerain. Ultimately, my own epic world, Shaintar, joined his, and the Suzerain continuum was born. This is Mashup Madness as high art, wherein a powerful and deeply developed concept that links worlds brings forth heroes becoming gods in the defense of those worlds. It is the vehicle for a multitude of settings published by Savage Mojo, all of which can readily stand alone as game worlds, yet are intricately linked in the greater story. So this is genre mashup as going out into different worlds. So each world stands alone, and then your characters join together and go into these different worlds. So it's kind of like Rifts in reverse, or Torg in reverse, and we'll get into Torg in a minute. Instead of everything coming to one world, your heroes come from many worlds and go out into many worlds. It is really kind of brilliant. There's a lot of, like I said, high art concepts there. Stuff about telesme and ways that heroes go from the legendary rank to the demigod rank in Savage Worlds. So they do a lot of expansionist stuff there. Art director for Pinnacle, Aaron Acevedo, is also heavily involved in creating and putting together all this kind of stuff. And that is obviously some of Aaron's work right there. That's his very unique style, you see. Moving on to the final pick for this week of Mashup Madness, Torg Eternity. In a lot of games that fit the Mashup Madness Week theme, you end up with the melange of genre elements and tropes, and you're encouraged to just mix it up and dive in. With Torg Eternity, there's a pretty specific setup of genre concepts being mashed into the core Earth. The entire premise involves the very conflict created when ancient spirit magic and cybernetic laser arms crash up against eldritch horror and pulp superheroes. It's beautiful and brilliant, and the core activity for the player is to be one of the few people in the multiverse capable of dealing with what happens when all this mess gets tangled up and people need heroes to fix it. So the conflict and the concept of getting disconnected, you're wearing this powerful suit of cyber armor, but you've gone into an ancient spiritual realm, and that armor may not work, so you got to make sure you make your hero capable of dealing with and without their cool gear and their cool special abilities. Meanwhile, the Gaunt Man and the other High Lords are all in the background competing for the power of possibilities. This is another one of those games that came out. It came out directly parallel to Rifts, and the two stood as the giants of Mashup Madness back in the day, and of course have both come out recently in a revival kind of thing. Really good work done here by Shane Lacey Hensley, Ross Watson, Daryl Hayhurst, Marcus Plotz, and a whole bunch of other really great people. So I'm really excited. We're actually currently playing a game of this with Mike Lithgow and Scott Crossan teaming up to run it, and I've enjoyed myself greatly playing a pulp-era character named the Mechanic. All right, folks, that is Mashup Madness Week. For the picks of the week, I want to thank you, as always, for watching and listening. And again, if you keep an eye on Sean'sPickOfTheDay.com, you'll be able to track the picks of the day as they go. You can follow me on Facebook. You'll see them pop across my timeline and in the Evil Beagle Games timeline. Also on G+, Google+, you'll see these show up in the Pick of the Day category on both the role-playing game section and the G+ role-playing game community. And again, those links down below are affiliate-coded links, which means you are helping me keep a little gas in the car and keep the dog fed, which I have always appreciated. All right, y'all have a great time, and we'll see you next week. Keep the games going.